making 5 grand in a month, then 10, then 15, then 20, then 25. And the most I ever made in a month was 37.
Yeah.
And it didn't change anything.
As humans, we experience a wide range of crazy emotions, and these emotions can come up during challenging times that seem to hit us out of nowhere. That's the purpose of this podcast, to teach you how to move through these difficult situations and harness these emotions that we feel to be able to create the life that you want. My name's Nathaniel Burke, and I'm the host of the Emotional Fitness Podcast. I hope you enjoy. All right, Arhen, thank you so much for being on the show. I'm super pumped for this one. I saw a few weeks back that you were doing podcasts. And then, first of all, I love the name, The Mental Dietitian. I think it's such a great name for a podcast. More importantly, I listened to an episode yesterday and I was like, instantly, I was like, I need this guy on the podcast. I love what you're talking about. I love what you're doing. It was so good. It resonated with me. I think the podcast name was Being a Man, or the masculinity side. And I was just like, this is awesome. You're making all these great references. And I was like, I need this guy on the podcast. I just want to talk to you about just what you're doing and who you are. So thank you so much for being here.
Of course, man. Thank you.
So maybe do you want to just take a few minutes and just introduce yourself to um, my viewers and who you are and what you're doing right now?
Yeah, so my name's Arhen Lynch Potter. I am originally from Australia. I've lived in Canada for about 10 years. 10 years in August this year. So it'll be 10 years in August this year. I started my journey in sales actually with you. That was one of my first sales jobs at Good Life Fitness. And that was over 9 years ago now.
Crazy.
And I've been in sales ever since then. And I love it, man. I work selling cars right now. But outside of that, about 3.5 years ago, it started my kind of journey looking inwards in a way. I've
Mm.
always looked inwards, but it started with like psychedelic therapy. So I went really deep into that. I have done pretty much every kind of plant medicine you can think of, except iboga, which does not really appeal to me at this moment. But that the reason I went down that path is I was making more money than I ever had in my life. I was making 15 to $30,000 a month selling cars, and
Mm.
my anxiety that I had at the time was actually worse. So I had
Whoa.
this story in my head that if I can make enough money, this feeling that I feel within me will go, and it
Huh.
actually got worse. So that was
Wow.
quite hard to deal with. I ended up getting invited to a men's weekend, and that changed everything for me. So
Mm.
I ended up looking inwards. I went on a 3 year, every 3 to 6 months, diving into plant medicine, doing my best to integrate it as best I could. Sometimes I did, sometimes I didn't. And now I'm at a place where I don't feel like I need anything like that anymore because the seeking that I was doing, the constant wanting to go to the next thing, the next thing, the next plant medicine retreat, whatever, was actually driven by a behavior that, oh, maybe next time I'll figure out why I'm broken. And the very behavior that was pushing that was searching for why there's something wrong with me is the very hate behavior I was trying to run away from. So it was like a snake it was like a snake eating its own tail.
Mm.
And last year in July, I had a very big experience where I realized that that was actually the problem, that you don't need to do anything. You're
Mm.
fine how you are.
Hmm.
So during all this time, about a year and a half ago, I did a certification to be a psycho-spiritual integration coach.
Oh,
So I'm
wow.
an
Okay.
addiction recovery coach as well. And I
Very
mostly
cool.
work with people at the moment outside of selling vehicles who are going through ketamine infusions for
Okay.
anxiety, depression, things like that. I've
Wow.
worked with ex really high like NHL, NFL level coaches. I've worked with real estate agents. I've worked with people who own dozens of businesses, and that's kind of really my niche around men who are kind of high achievers that might be
Mm.
successful in one area of their life, but are lacking and failing in other areas of their life. So that's
Wow.
what I do now. That's just a little snapshot of where I have come from and where I am now.
I love that you're doing that because It's so funny because right away, and even my old self was like, wow, you made all this money. You must be this. And it's just it's so fascinating to hear these stories, like you said, is that even though this was happening, the outside, everybody's perception, because if I was to look at you and think, oh, you're doing this, right away you start drawing up these pictures of, oh my God, this. You have all these things lined up, but that's not the case.
No.
And it's interesting that you're helping people do that now. So it really goes to show you that this surface, and maybe it's a guy thing, maybe it's just people, but that we like to put up this barrier of like, well, look at me. This is who I want everybody to think I am, and I'm going to be the absolute best in it. But behind that, it's just it's not there. You said you have high anxiety.
Well, it's insecurity.
Yeah,
It. I saw this Gary V video on Instagram the other day where he's like, there's two people that work really hard.
yeah,
There's ones that are highly insecure. They're working 12, 18 hours a day. And then there's people that just absolutely fucking love it.
yeah,
And I was like, God damn, man, like that insecurity thing was me for such a long time. Like,
yeah,
if I can just think I'm enough for myself, then I'm enough. If I can just get here, like, if I can, I drove a 2018 Audi RS5 and it was such an amazing car and it was a cool experience. But I was like, oh, if I have this car, then I'll be enough.
yeah,
I remember making 5 grand in a month, then 10, then 15, then 20, then 25. And the most I ever made in a month was 37.
yeah.
And it didn't change anything.
It's
And
great.
the last 6 months, I've had really bad months in the industry. It's been weird, and I'm actually really broke right now. So it's on the other end of that, just humbled and just realized that your worth doesn't come from any of that at all.
Yeah. And you know
So
what? I love, first of all, thank you for sharing. And I love your vulnerability in that because it's so funny. Like you just said, we as society sometimes tie our monetary, this made up thing, but to our own self-worth.
yeah,
And and I do understand the idea of like, okay, you do need somewhere to live. You need to have food, you need to have shelter, water, all that kind of stuff. I get it. But to tie, once that's met, outside of that, that doesn't like it doesn't change anything. You could
yeah.
still, like you said, you could still be broken on the inside. And like
Yeah,
you said, you're happier now. You're making less money now, but you're happier.
yeah,
So it doesn't, and it just to show you like more doesn't mean happiness. And you can
no.
have more money and be happy, and you can have less money and be happy. So it's just then just separating the two.
There's always more. There's
Yeah.
always that's the problem.
Yeah.
And do you love yourself for who you are or for what you do?
Mhm. Absolutely.
If you love yourself for what you do,
Yeah.
what if what you do was taken away from you one day? Because it will be, because what I've worked with people who have retired, right? They
Yeah.
retire from their jobs.
Mhm.
Oh, I'm a firefighter. I'm a doctor. I'm a
Yeah.
personal trainer. I'm
Yeah.
a
Yeah.
sales coach. No, you're not.
No, that's just a
No,
part.
that's a label you are attaching yourself to.
Yes.
And what happens when that label is no longer, what do you do? Are you not you anymore?
Yeah.
It's like, fuck.
Yeah. Absolutely. No, that's such a good point. And this is something I talk to a lot of people, especially in relationships and again, business owners and anybody, but it's just that that's just a part of you. That's just one hat that you put on. You have, yeah, you have your career, and that's good. There's nothing wrong with being good at it. It's a beautiful thing to just like apply yourself, but that's just one part of your life.
Yeah.
Then you have the dad or the brother or the son and or the mother, the father, like whatever. You have all these other roles that you can play. You're the friend. Sometimes you're the like understanding that you're a spectrum,
Yeah.
right?
100%, man.
And it's not, and that's the problem. And I think, like you said, is that eventually it'll leave. I understand that on a smaller scale, but as an athlete playing football for years, and that like separation to finally not, I had a bad injury, was having a kid at like 20. I was like, holy shit, my life is changing radically because that's not where I envisioned it a year ago. And it was like a bit of like depression and shift of like, what am I? Like, I'm not an athlete. What am I? Because I've dedicated over half my life, or at least on my waking days for the last 8 years or 6 years up to that point. So you have this like, holy crap, who am I? What am I even doing? And then you realize you're like, right, that's just a part of it. That's just one thing that you're doing for that time.
Yeah, it's an ego death. You have to go through ego
Yeah.
deaths throughout your entire life. Like
Yeah.
your 20s, like most men in their early 20s, they're looking at chasing girls and looking at this.
Yeah.
And I see people, especially where you live in Kelowna, that
Hmm.
are 50-year-old, 20-year-olds.
Yeah.
So they're still taking chicks out on the boats. They're still juiced out on steroids.
Yeah.
They're still there. So they are stuck in the maturity level of their 20s. They
Hmm.
haven't accepted that they're 50, 60. It's crazy, especially in Kelowna.
Yeah. And just to add to that, there is nothing inherently wrong with having a boat. There's nothing
No, God,
inherently
no.
wrong with taking your friends out on the boat and doing
No.
this and working out. It's not. But there's a difference because the people, when you
Yeah.
talk to those people, it's like what's driving them. It's the things they talk about all the time. You're like, okay, well, clearly that's all important. That seems to be what's important to you.
Yeah.
Versus you realize you have these other facets of your life that you can be absolutely wonderful in and still have that.
Yeah.
Right. And
They haven't transitioned that ego death out of their 20s and then
mhm,
accepting, oh, you're 30, then oh, now I'm 40. These
mhm,
different seasons of life that we're in.
yeah.
You meet people that they're the driving force behind what they do is what you described. It's they talk about it. They talk about like sleeping with girls in their early 20s and they're like in their
Mm.
40s, 50s, 60s, and you're like,
Yeah.
bro, like
Come
like
on.
yes, like I get it. I went through that phase, but I was in
Yep.
my early 20s, and I think every man should go through that phase because just because it's part of maturing in a way.
Mm.
It's you're exploring who you are, you're exploring what's going on. But some people get stuck there, especially the
Yep.
partying, the bendering, the cocaine, the alcohol, the all of that.
Yep.
It's they get stuck there for decades.
Yep. And you know
Yeah.
what? I think the common thread there, I would say, is moving away from self,
Yeah.
moving away from filling your own needs. Because I think, I play in a competitive men's football league, and you get a range of guys, and it's awesome. I love it. There's a good community there, but you get a range of men, and we play with 20-year-olds, and you can see like how they lose a game and their ego is just plummeted, or they make a bad play and their whole ego is just destroyed. And then you have guys on the other end that have been doing it for, they're 40, 50, and they just want to go out there and have fun and hang out with their guys. And you have guys that are also 40 and 50 and are trying to fight dudes. And you get these just range of personalities.
Yeah.
But it's interesting because the guys that always seem to I would say draw the attention, but that I'm always like, oh man, I like just inspired by is the guys that they seem to perform well, but it's not about self. It's about their team. It's about bringing people up. And then when you start talking to these people, there's a few of them I can think of now, and I'm not saying they have everything figured out because I don't think anybody really does, but just that they're constantly about their team.
Yeah.
And it's constantly about, and we're not talking like we're good looking guys that are athletes that are doing, have the career and all these things, but I can think of a few that are just constantly about their team and bringing people up. And I think that's that shift of, that 20 to 30-year-old shift is how can I now I don't need to necessarily bring my own ego up. How can I help somebody else? How can I lay a path for somebody else and bring them up?
Yeah.
And truly,
That's
that's what leadership is anyway, right? And those are the most
100%.
influential guys. It's bringing others up around you,
Yeah.
which is such a beautiful thing. And I think that's a hat that I feel like most men, to some degree, want to do. But as you said before, they're still in that 20-year-old version of themselves,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah. They're still stuck in, I don't know if you ever read the book King, Warrior, Magician, Lover. It's
I
a,
know of the archetype, so
yeah,
yeah, it's super good. Yeah.
it's those men are stuck in like a boy psychology where boy
Mhm.
psychology is about dominating,
Yep.
winning,
Mhm.
like hyper competitiveness. a man's like a healthy man psychology as what Carl Jung like really went into what
Hmm.
150 100 years ago, which
Hmm.
is what that book is based about, is like nurturing other men as a man.
Yeah.
Like being a healthy masculine man is about uplifting other men, and it's not about beating them. Or,
Hmm.
for example, I went into a jiu-jitsu competition yesterday.
Okay.
That's full of healthy men. Like at
Yeah.
the white belt level, it's they're just kind of dipping their toes in the water. You see a lot more injuries, right?
Yeah.
I saw broken arms yesterday, like
Hmm.
three of them,
Oh,
all white belts. Their ego, they're in
okay.
a fully locked arm bar, they won't tap. And I don't know why. It's like your arm's gonna break, just tap. It doesn't matter. Like who cares? And some of
Yeah.
them tap and they snap their arms. Then
Oh.
I'm at a blue belt level, and I'm going with guys that have been doing it for probably 3 to 5 years,
Hmm.
most of them. And they have a maturity where you go out there, you're literally like, this guy's trying to snap my leg. I get out of it. This other, like, we're trying to hurt each other. As
Hmm.
soon as it's done, give each other a hug, like, great match, man. Like, and we care about each other. And there's a bond that we
Hmm.
have each other because we have competed in combat with each other. And there's
Yeah.
something very special about that.
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
it's not, I'm not trying to, I'm not trying to hurt them. We have these agreed upon terms that yes, as soon as I tap your hand and we fist bump, I'm going to try and hurt you.
Yeah.
But I'm not going to, if I get a good position, I'm not going to try to snap your leg. But if you don't tap, you will get your leg snapped.
Yeah.
Things like that.
Yeah.
So it's just the difference between a healthy masculine level of wanting to compete with other people, but you don't want to like take their soul. You don't want to shatter
Yeah.
them. You don't want to like destroy their lives.
Yeah.
And little kids and little boys kind of, you see it. You see it everywhere, man.
Yeah.
Like vindictive, just like going out of your way to really hurt somebody for what? Because it makes you feel good.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's I don't know.
No,
I'm
I
not
agree.
about that.
I think the difference there, and because we've, and I'm saying this personally, but I'm sure you've been there. Well, we've been there in our 20s and late teens and 20s. Like I'm just gonna hurt somebody because I can.
Yeah.
And I think the evolution there, or the growth there, is that it's not that there's no aggression. It's not. It's that it's controlled aggression.
Yeah.
And the key there is controlled. It's knowing there's a time and place where I'm going to go all out. But understanding that, like, once you tap, or like I said, I don't do mixed martial arts, but I know a lot about, or know enough about jiu-jitsu, is that once this is plays over, or once this, you tap, it's done. That's it.
Yeah.
You're not my enemy,
No.
right? But there's something beautiful about that, because it makes both of you stronger, because you learn how to win and you also learn how to lose.
Yeah.
And that's what it's about, is like, if you can't handle, you need to be able to handle both of those gracefully, and just being able to use it as a lesson.
Yeah. That's why I'm such an advocate for men to do some kind of martial arts
Mm,
because for many reasons. Reason number one is it gives you confidence. It
yeah,
gives you confidence. And if you feel safe within yourself,
yeah,
then if you are with a woman, the feminine responds to safety.
yeah,
They will not You will not have this amazing relationship with a woman unless they feel safe.
yeah,
Sorry. If you're not a safe man,
yeah,
you won't be able to, they won't relax into their femininity. They won't open themselves up to you.
yeah,
They just won't. And
yeah,
and and if you're not safe, they will have to step into their masculine energy, which is
yep,
competitiveness. It can become this. And here's the
yep,
thing, that dynamic is fluid. There's some couples I know that the man is more feminine and the woman is more masculine. That's just how it works for them, and it changes, and it's like this flowing thing. But a lot of men want to be the masculine man in the relationship. I
hmm,
always pose a question. If you cannot defend yourself physically and you know that, you just
hmm,
know that, how could you ever feel safe within yourself?
hmm,
And if you can't feel safe within yourself, subconsciously, at a soul level, whatever you want to call it, the woman will potentially know that you can't,
hmm,
potentially. There's other ways of providing safety. There's financial, there's
yeah,
emotional, there's so many
yeah,
ways of providing safety. But I think at the core of being a man,
Mm.
it's really important to know that, hey, like I can defend myself and my partner if I'm out there in society and some guy is maybe high on drugs and gets too close. Like
Yeah.
I don't feel scared.
Hmm.
Obviously, apart from the situation, you obviously feel a natural fear, but I have some skills. I know what to do
Yeah.
to be able to mobilize this person, and I feel safe enough. That's
Absolutely.
what is a really important thing for men. Another thing that martial arts provides, I've seen, is it gives somebody, like you said, controlled violence.
Mm.
Violence, especially with another man, is probably the most intimate you can be with them in a non-sexual way.
Mm.
Violence is quite intimate. You literally, it's this very strange kind of, you know how it is, even playing probably football
Hmm.
and
Oh yeah.
like really like smashing into somebody.
Yeah.
There's this like bond, especially
Yeah.
if you're like a tight end and you're just facing the same guy all day and you're like
Yeah.
looking at him, you're like you have
Yeah.
this bond where you're like, I'm gonna get you. It's like, no, I'm gonna get you.
Yeah. Yeah.
And
Yeah.
yeah, so it provides this really like healthy place to
Yeah.
explore violence and aggression,
Yeah.
but you're in a container. Just
Yes.
like you create a coaching container with your clients, so do I. You're in this container that if shit really goes sideways, you're not really going to get hurt.
Hmm.
Like you, unless it's an accident.
Yeah.
And it's also a way for men to gather with each other.
Hmm.
Most men don't gather in each other in a healthy way anymore. They what? They go to the bar,
Yeah.
they maybe play a sports team. Like that's a healthy way for men to gather.
Hmm.
Exploring that way. I just think that if you're not doing some kind of physical activity, it doesn't necessarily have to be martial arts. I say
Hmm.
that I'm biased because it's helped me get a lot of confidence in myself. I was bullied a lot growing up. I didn't have any confidence. I made myself small. I don't do
Mm.
that anymore because I don't need to.
Yeah.
And you only do that when you feel fear.
Yeah.
And if you feel fear just by existing, then you'll shrink. You'll shrink. You'll just constantly shrink.
Hmm.
So yeah, that's why I'm kind of biased about men doing some kind of martial art, whether it's boxing, kickboxing, Muay
Hmm.
Thai, MMA, Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu, something like that.
Absolutely. No, I'd agree with you. I think to add to that, yes, men coming together is so good. It's a bond. You're creating brothers. You are building an expanded village, if you will.
Yeah,
And when you're on, I come from the team side, and I think it's so playing, basketball, football, whatever. I think it's so critical because now you're creating brothers that will be there. And you really get to learn who they are because not only do you see how they win, but you see how they handle loss. And I
yeah,
think that's even more important
yeah,
because are they the type of person that blames and gets angry, points fingers, or are they somebody that takes it upon themselves? Right.
yeah,
And I thankfully I'm on a team now that is just so wonderful. And we have a great group of guys that we all just come together and it's whether we're winning or losing, it's nobody's, there's no hero for lack of a better term. It's like we did it. And when we lose, it's like we lost. And our leaders and being one of them, we've all adopted this mentality, just that like we're constantly trying to bring each other up. And it's not pointing the fingers, it's always owning your side first. We played yesterday and I played terrible. I did not have a good game. And thankfully it's a scrimmage, but it was just that like right now, like I gotta be better. I
yeah,
know I gotta be better. And it takes humility to do that. It takes courage, but it also builds a huge amount of strength. It's
100%.
a weird thing because you think, oh, we are showing weakness. It's like, no, like I have enough strength to look inside and go, like, I can be better. So if you keep doing that, and that's what I love about coaching as well, not just like with relationships and businesses, but with athletes, is that you get to do that. And you get to show them that there's actually a huge amount of strength and looking inward and trying to constantly improve yourself. And
100%, man. Of
it's such a wonderful thing. So I wanted to ask you a few questions.
course.
Um, so what is So the old name of the podcast is Kicked in the Junk, and I liked it just because sometimes you have these moments where just life hits you with this like thing that's just so tough to handle. So And I wanted to incorporate that into this and being the emotional fitness podcast because I think there's a lot of value there. So do you have a moment, a kicked in the junk moment, or a moment where you just felt like life just hit you so hard?
Oh, so many, dude. So many. Um, when my mom got diagnosed with cancer when I was about 18, 19, she
Oh, well.
survived. When when I moved to Canada, and I remember starting at Good Life, and I went to get on the bus in on the corner of Kalo and Pandosi, I think.
Yeah.
And the bus fare was 2.25, right? And I literally had $2 to my name. I had two
Oh,
dollars to my name. And I had a $2 coin, and I went on the bus, and I was like, "Hey man, this is all I've got." And he looks at me, he's like, "It's 2.25." And I was like, I don't have any money to get to work." And he's like, "Just get on the bus. Keep your
oh,
$2." I was like,
oh.
and just sitting there on the way to Good Life and like borrowing $20 off Brad Brad Petrie, which is this other Australian guy that I
Yeah.
started training with, and just like, here's what's funny. That day I made my first sale. I sold a year's worth of training, which was like $7,700, and you got
Yeah.
paid 10% commission at the time.
Yeah.
And I remember I was like, I just made $770 today. And
Mm,
that first sale, from going from that feeling of like, I'm a piece of shit. Like, how the fuck did I get to the place where I have $2 to my name? I'm on the other
yeah.
side of the world. I don't know anybody. I have no family here. I don't really have any friends.
Well,
Like, I was just so immensely alone. I just remember that feeling of like, I'm alone. I'm like 21, 22 at the time. And I was like, what am I doing? Like, how did I get here?
yeah.
And then that day I felt the complete opposite. Like 5 p.m. I butchered the contract. Just I had no idea what I was doing. Nobody was there to help me. But this guy agreed to it. I remember going through the entire sales pitch, and he was like, "Yep, let's do it." And I was like, "Holy shit." You remember that feeling? I was like, it expanded who I thought I could be. Because I was
Mm,
like, if I could make $770 in a day from selling this personal training, and then I get to help them, I get paid, I think it was $20 an hour for
yeah. Yeah.
I was like, my brain just expanded. I was like, oh, you don't have to, you don't have to work for like an hour figure per, like a dollar figure per hour. It just expanded everything. That kind of really got me started in sales, and I started getting very good at it after that
Hmm.
because I always put people over profits. I
Yeah.
always did that. I always cared about the person.
Hmm.
That was one kicked in the junk moment, and I've had a lot since then, man. I seem to have them. I have probably one a year, which is good. Like, but
I,
there's
I love your mentality with that. Yeah, I got one a year. It's great.
because if you can handle it,
Yeah.
and if you can, and if you, it's like I had one in July when I drank ayahuasca for the first time. I started with ayahuasca for the first time. I wanted to do it for years. I wanted to join the ayahuasca club.
Yeah.
So many people do that. They're like, and it wasn't that I wasn't ready for it, but it just shattered me. It took away everything that think about who you identify as.
Hmm.
Basically shattered all of that. And I had to rebuild myself. And then I didn't do it properly. And then December, I had to relive the entire experience over a week-long period when it was wild. It was wild. And basically what it was navigating all the shadow parts of myself that I
Mm.
did not love.
Yeah.
And that was very uncomfortable.
Yeah.
All the shame.
Yeah.
Shame is a very interesting emotion where if I said, "Hey, Nathaniel, do you want to talk about shame?" No.
Yeah. Nobody wants to talk about shame.
No,
Actually,
it wants to hide.
yeah.
All addiction is rooted in shame.
Yeah.
There's no exceptions to that. None, zero.
Yeah.
Anything that you hide from is rooted in shame. Going back
Yeah.
to men's emotions,
Yeah.
a real man does not hide from anything, including himself. So
Hmm.
if there's emotions that you are not expressing, things you're not expressing, things you're not feeling, it's because
Yeah.
you feel ashamed. It's because you
Yeah.
feel that shame's greatest fear is if you finally had the courage to share what you would share, that you would be rejected.
Yeah.
But the antidote to shame is love.
Yeah.
So I had to learn to love all these parts of myself that I said I could never love.
Mm.
like just crazy things. Like, could you love yourself if you're in a wheelchair?
Yeah.
You can't
Yeah.
do jiu-jitsu anymore.
That's a
Could you
tough
love
one.
your could you love yourself if you're a vegetable
Mm,
in a vegetative state? Could you
yeah.
love yourself if you were gay?
Yeah.
Could you
Right.
love yourself if you weren't you?
Yeah.
Whatever it may be. Like it literally hit me with every if you had cancer, if you had terminal cancer and you knew you were gonna die, could you love yourself? If you were 350 pounds, if you
Right.
all these
Yeah.
different things, that's what I had to go through. It was wild. And
That's
it showed me all of it
that's
when I did the
crazy.
ayahuasca. Yeah, it showed me all of it, and I had to feel it all and experience it all. It was a lot.
Yeah, but you know what? It it makes me think of the emotional flexibility or the emotional fitness that gives you.
Oh,
And
unbelievable.
yeah, and it's because me and my wife talked about loss, and we did a really great workshop yesterday with for couples. And I said, and something I always mention is like, you have to love your partner. And this is talking about in a relationship. You have to love your partner in all aspects of them.
You have to love their pain.
Yeah, they're awful, terrible, worst version of themselves. You have to love it.
Yeah,
And you have to love the best version. And then, like you said, it's you got to flip that inwards. And that's sometimes tougher.
it's really difficult.
It's much tougher. And I know I've had to go through this experience myself. Not that per se, but it's something I always constantly having to explore and look at is like, what are the areas I don't like about myself and why? And I don't think you need to do ayahuasca, but I also get
Oh,
it. I do get it. Because it's like, hey, this is a catalyst and this is just happening.
yeah.
But I feel the exploration side. It's like, right, why don't I love myself that way? Why and for men it can range from money, those are his big ones. Why don't I earn this money? To
Yeah.
sex. Oh, why do I have this? Why do I why can't I last 4 hours like they do in porn? Like, you know what I mean? Like this, like
Ridiculous.
wild, yeah, ridiculous things. But there's shame that gets built there, especially around sex and money.
Oh, for sure.
And
Performance. I think it's around performance.
yes, yes,
If you can't perform as a man, does that mean you're not a man?
yeah, that's yeah. And a lot of, yeah, I'm gonna say ego men, strong ego would go, yeah, you're not a man. And it's like, no, that's not like that's just again, that's coming back to that sliver. It's just a sliver. It's just a range of who you can be. But the beautiful side of that is that when you dive into it and you love yourself there for those mistakes, and that's the toughest part I've always constantly having to do is, look back at past relationships, look back at past mistakes and be like, thank you. Thank myself because I did the best I could then. And that's such an easy practice. And then look at how that incident got me to who I am today.
Yeah.
So thank the little boy that got bullied. For
Yeah.
myself, I was bullied. Thank him. Even though I could look back with him in anger and he was weak and he was this and this and this, but he got me to here.
Yeah.
And he was critical in that.
Yeah.
Thank him.
Yeah.
I actually didn't think I was even get emotional during this, but it's thank him for being that who he was then.
Yeah. He did his best, man. He did
Yeah.
his best, and he didn't have the tools, and he also didn't have. When I coach men, I'm like, most men, it's crazy. Most men, they don't even know it. They are right now who they needed when they were a kid. That's what
Yeah.
their driving factor is.
Yes. Yes.
Like who you are right now, coaching people, the relationship. I
Yeah.
could probably make a fairly accurate guess. I might be off that there's the reason why that is maybe your mom and dad didn't have the relationship you wanted, and
Mm,
maybe you didn't have the masculine figure that you really needed in your life when you were that little bully or that getting that bullied as a kid.
yeah.
So now you are that man, and now when you are helping maybe younger athletes, you are what you needed.
Yeah.
So it's like I imagine like the 12-year-old Nathaniel And I think how old are you now? 34, 35,
30,
36?
34, yeah. 35
34,
this year, yeah.
yeah, 34. So imagine like the 12-year-old and the 34-year-old like looking at each other.
Yeah.
And it's just like, hey man, fuck, like here I am.
Yeah, yeah,
Like,
yeah.
like, is that you? It's like, yep.
Yeah, you can be this.
Yeah, like you help me be this. So whatever it is you're going through right now, I know it's tough. I know it's
Yeah,
hard. I know it's fucking. You get home after school every day and you're like, what the fuck? And you feel alone and it's horrible. And those boys are mean and they're stronger than you and they laugh at you. But I am this because of what you are going through right now.
absolutely. I 100% agree. I think that was one of the main reasons. So two, I had a reason why I got into fitness is one, I had a good influence, thankfully, with my dad. He worked out all the time, and I always watched him work out. So I was like,
Awesome.
okay, this is good. And it was a good influence. So I started working out. But then part of it too was I was the skinny kid. I was like, I had like might have been like not short, but definitely was the skinny kid. And even my dad would say, "Oh, your brothers are thicker than you, and this, and this, and one day, and all this sort of stuff." And I'm not blaming him. He was doing what he knew was best.
That hurts though. That
Oh, it
fucking
hurt.
hurts.
Oh, it hurts.
That
It absolutely
hurts.
hurts. You're like your dad going like, hmm, like
Hey,
telling you
son,
this.
you're not as good as your brothers. That's what the kid hears. Hey, you're
Yeah,
not as good as, and then you compare yourself and yeah.
totally. But you know what? On the flip side, the blessing in it was that if you look in our family, because there's six brothers, two sisters,
Wow.
super competitive.
Oh yeah.
All of us super competitive. And I'm stepping away from that role now, but in my early 20s, I was the most competitive and I was going to win at all costs. So on the upside, it made me a good athlete.
Yeah.
On the
100%.
upside, I went at things with a chip on my shoulder with that drive, and it drove me to strength train constantly. And it wasn't until I was about 28 that I looked in the mirror one time and went, I'm not the skinny kid anymore. And it was like this like weird,
Whoa.
yeah, it was like this weird like, huh, because I was always a skinny guy. I was always a, lean, whatever. And I'm like, oh, I guess I'm not anymore. And it just like this like shift of, oh, okay. And I don't have to try to protect myself. I don't have to do this. So allowing it just gives you a perspective shift. So that's the beautiful thing about those moments is it allows you to transition into a
You let
better,
go. You let go of a belief that was hurting you.
yeah, yeah,
It's not true.
yeah,
What if the things you believed just about yourself are not true? The
yeah,
ones that hurt you, oh, I can't do that because of this. I had a knee injury that I used to refer to myself as I had a bad knee.
yeah,
Then I had a psychedelic experience where I had immense pain. It's like my knee was like it was like being stabbed with a knife for 4 hours. And
yeah,
I basically released all this energy from my knee. And ever since then, I've never said I have a bad knee because I don't.
yeah,
But
exactly.
I'd blame my knee. I'd blame being skinny for things.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I like what you said there with your knee. And I find it so powerful because, as you know, our words have power. And I think sometimes, especially the younger we are, we just throw them around, we say stuff. And unfortunately, sometimes you see it even older adults. But he said, if you're like, oh, I have a bad knee, well, then how do you think your body's going to react to that? Like, truly.
Subconscious is like, okay,
Yeah,
cool.
cool. You got a bad knee. Great. This is just what it is.
Yep.
Right.
But subconscious doesn't respond to logic. It
Yeah.
responds to whatever you feed it.
Yes.
So if you're constantly like, people are like, oh, fuck my life, and people say like that,
Mhm.
like just, you got to be really careful with what you say to yourself because the most important conversation you'll ever have is the one you have with yourself. And if
Yeah.
you're constantly having it, you're constantly having it, you got to be really careful with what you say.
Yeah.
Really, really careful with what you think, what you say. And if you have these constant things you think about,
Yeah.
then they are the deep inner beliefs that you need to do the work around and you need to feel them.
Yeah.
That's why a lot of my clients have done talk therapy,
Mhm.
right? Talk therapy is great if you are with somebody that you feel safe to actually feel the emotions around.
Yeah.
But I'm going to say, most of the people that I've worked with, that I've coached, maybe it's because the pool of people I'm talking to, they've tried everything and it hasn't worked for them.
Hmm.
Maybe. So I can't take that group of people and say that it's like that for the entire industry. I can't.
Hmm.
But from what I've seen is that you have to feel to heal. You
Yes.
have to feel. So, for example, with you, that feeling of maybe your dad comparing you to your younger brothers or the older brothers or whoever, the bigger, stronger brothers, and you feeling small and weak and like the skinny guy, which didn't change until you're like
Hmm.
28, until
Yeah.
you looked at like, oh, I can fucking lift hundreds and hundreds of pounds.
Yeah. Yeah.
Like when I met you, I never thought you were skinny ever. Like
Yeah.
I've never seen you, and I think you would have been probably 24,
Yeah.
25 at the time. So you
Yeah.
hadn't even got there yet.
Yeah.
So you probably still thought you were skinny.
Yeah.
But you have to feel how painful that was. You have to
Yeah.
cry. You have to let it out. It gets
Yeah.
stuck in your somatic system. You
Yeah.
know this. People listening know this. Like it causes injury. Like
Yeah.
it causes illness.
Yeah.
Like I had this thing in my scapula, Nathaniel, that I couldn't for months. Like I had this thing in my scapula, like right next to my shoulder blade, and I would go to massage. I went to fucking Cairo.
Yeah.
I went and got acupuncture done. I would put a lacrosse ball in it every day, and it didn't do anything.
Hmm.
And then I went to a really small gathering where we did psilocybin
Yeah.
mushrooms,
Yep.
and I was like, I want to explore what this pain is,
Hmm.
and it was emotional pain.
Yeah.
It was stuck in my muscle. It
Yeah.
was it was stuck there, and I was able to release it, and my scapula didn't. It was gone the next day.
Yeah.
Gone. The pain was gone.
Yeah. That's
That
amazing.
experience changed my perspective. It changed my perspective instantly of what it meant to be a human being. I was like,
Hmm.
so you saying that people's sore backs, people's injuries could be emotional. They're not always emotional. There's sometimes structural issues.
Yeah.
For me, I had a structural issue in my knee. But what I did is I constantly talked about the structural issue in my knee. So after the structural issue was actually healed, because it was healed, I still had the symptoms.
Yeah.
Why? Because I built this structure in my mind, I built this structure of who I believed I am. I'm like, I'm Arhen Lynch Potter. I've had a bad knee since I was 13. So therefore I can't run, I can't do this, I can't do that.
Mm.
And then when I had stem cells, I had stem cells in my knee. It started to heal, and I started to feel that that wasn't the case anymore. But I realized how attached and how
Hmm.
addicted I
Yeah.
was to the story. We're
Yeah.
all addicted to our own stories.
Yeah.
Is your story creating happiness, abundance, peace, or is your story creating suffering?
And it's hard. I will say it's hard for most people to hear that because it's like
It's the
it's
truth.
the truth. And especially, and I say if you're getting angry about hearing that, it means you need to dive into it.
There it is. There you go. It just
Yeah.
shows that I'm right, and I'm not trying to be right. I'm just saying that you know it to be
Yeah.
true. And anytime you hear
Yeah.
anything that bothers you, triggers you, anytime you meet somebody for the first time, you just don't fucking like them, but you
Hmm.
don't even know them.
Yeah.
That's because they're showing you a part of you that you don't like
Don't like.
yourself. They're a mirror.
Yep. My wife always says that. And I remember the first time she's told me that, I was like, well, hot damn. I was like, oh, I don't know what to say about that, but I guess I should probably address this.
Yeah.
But you know what? There's something humbling about it, as we talked about before. But on the other side, there's something so powerful and a huge amount of strength comes with that. Because now it's going inwards and addressing me and how I feel. And to touch on the emotions trapped in your body. I did a podcast a few ago about that, and we talked, and the whole topic was trapped emotions. And she made a good point. Barbara was her name, and she does amazing work, but talking about how trapped emotions cause that physical pain. So
Yeah.
motion need to move,
Yeah.
right? And I went, oh, duh, like of course. So when you're not feeling them, and I know it's tough because especially for men, we've been just trained to feel one emotion really, and that's anger. Like
Yeah.
really, like you ask,
That's
oh, he's
the
just
only emotion
angry.
that's safe. You
Yep.
can't,
Yep.
any other emotion is not safe, but you can express anger, and
Mhm.
that's all you've got as a man.
Yep. Absolutely. And so that's been a message I've always been trying to tell people, and this isn't just men, but women as well, if they're living in their masculine a lot, is that we can experience those range of emotions. A great example is yesterday, day before. No, it was yesterday. I can't remember. Anyway, or Friday. But I meditate all the time. And I was like, I'm gonna switch it up a little bit because I've been doing two a day. And I'm like, I'm just gonna listen to this like really beautiful like music and I'm just gonna sit and just enjoy it. I'll put the timer for 20 minutes. And twice now, the same track, I can't explain it. I literally just start crying.
Beautiful.
And yeah, and it's the wildest thing, but it's something that I've been practicing and truly and I've talked to my wife about this and sometimes with her. And that sounds weird, but some guys might go, well, you're crying. It's like I feel so much better after. Not just emotionally, food tastes better. I can hear things better. I can remember things better. I can take on my day so much more. And I actually have no idea why I'm upset or why I'm crying. I truly have no idea. Sometimes I don't even have thoughts that pop into my head about like, oh yeah, this one time. Maybe I do. Sometimes, most of the time I don't. But I
It's a
allow.
releasing, man. It's a release,
Exactly.
and it's
Exactly.
healthy. Are
Yep.
you a dam or are you a river? Because I'd rather be a river. I don't want to be a dam.
Yeah.
People are like, any man that teases another man for crying, you've just got a giant dam, and anytime you see somebody else cry, it pokes a little hole in it, and you don't
Yeah.
like how that feels.
Yeah.
So therefore, you project your bullshit out onto other people,
Yeah.
saying, "Well, oh, well, just get on with it, mate. Just get
Yeah.
on with it.
Yeah.
Just listen. Being a man is sometimes suppressing your emotions and doing what needs to be done. Yes,
Yeah.
but you can't do that forever.
Yeah.
You have to take time. Nature shows us this.
Hmm.
Right now, we're going into spring. It's
Hmm.
growth, it's rebirth. Then we're going to have a nice summer, and it's going to be sunshine, it's going to be beautiful, and it's going to be awesome. But then things start to shift and they start to shrink and they start to go into fall and things die and the leaves fall off. And then you have winter, which is cold, and there's not a lot of growth happening at the time. And you have to retract. Nature retracts. Sometimes it's not always spring, bro.
Yeah.
It's not always growth. Our entire society is based on that. That's why our society is sick.
Hmm.
Every fucking company in the world is like, oh, we got to make more money this quarter than we did last quarter. That's literally defying the laws of the universe.
Hmm.
That's why
That's
there's this
good.
book I'm reading right now, which is absolutely mind shattering. It's called Ishmael by Daniel Quinn.
Hmm.
You want to get your brain egg beaten, that'll do it. It basically it says that we're in a society that is on this, we're on this crash course, right? We're on this crash course with destruction.
Hmm.
Whether or not you believe in global warming, which some people don't believe in it at all, you don't have to believe in it to look at the world we live in and look at we're gonna run out one day. Like we are.
Hmm.
Like it's not it could be 1,000 years from now, it could be 100 years from now.
Yeah. Yeah.
Way we're at war with the world. We think we're the rulers of the world. We're the only species on planet Earth that that thinks that the world was given to us.
Hmm.
All major religions are based on the fact that the world was chaos and then came man and
Hmm.
he gave order to everything.
Yeah. Yeah.
Well, how's it going?
Yeah.
Who thought who why are we the rulers of everything?
Mm.
Why do we say, oh, I'm going out in nature today? I'm gonna go on a nature walk.
Yeah.
Like because you think you're separate from it.
Yeah. And
It's crazy. It's
yeah.
nuts. Then we have like peoples like Aboriginal peoples, First Nations peoples, people around the world that don't live like that.
Mhm.
And then we have labeled them primitive and we've labeled them other
Mm.
when most of the shit we're talking about, most of this new age spiritual, the ayahuasca drinking, people have been doing that for 5,000 fucking years
Yeah. Yeah.
gathering in circles with men. The First Nation, the Navajo people were doing that for fucking thousands of years.
Yeah.
And then
Yeah.
you've got these idiot white people like, oh, this is actually pretty good. Oh, I should put my feet on the earth. This actually feels better than shoes. Like, oh, releasing our emotions and all this stuck emotions. Like, Oh, this is actually pretty awesome. It's like,
Yeah,
yeah, like all these other peoples have been doing that, but yet the last three, four, 500 years, we've labeled that as primitive and stupid. And now we're seeing this cultural shift back the other way, which
yeah,
is why you coach.
yeah,
It's why you can meditate and like
hmm,
listen to this music that's so beautiful that you're like, I'm not upset. I'm just releasing.
yeah,
Dude, on Friday, I was so anxious in the middle of the day. I just came home, sat on the bed, and I just cried, and I wasn't
yeah,
anxious anymore.
yeah,
It
yeah,
was gone. I was like, fuck, man, I didn't even know that was in me.
yeah,
Just like you need to pee sometimes.
yeah, yeah, yeah,
You need to do a shit. You
yeah,
need to get this stuff
yeah,
out of you because it's in there. But we're in this society that
mm,
says that is so backwards in so many ways. Like there's so many in this book, there's so much research on how to split an atom, how to go to Mars, how to do this. Why isn't there like deep research of like, hey, how do you live? How are you
mm,
supposed to live?
yeah,
Are you
yeah,
supposed to feel all your emotions or not feel them?
yeah, yeah, yeah. Which ones should I feel? Which ones, when
All
should
of
I
them,
feel them? Yeah,
all of
right.
them, whenever
Yeah,
they come up.
yeah,
But we live in a society that is structured around that you can't do that. Think
yeah,
about the 40-hour work week. Think
yeah,
about the schooling system. Think about the entire medical system, the entire system that we live in, that some people call the matrix, is structured so that it can't it can't accommodate the ebbs and flows of
mm,
the unpredictability of human emotions and feelings.
yeah,
You have to shove them away to do things that need to be done.
yeah,
In other societies, cult like more like tribal societies, like there's this one society in Africa that if somebody is sick, they ask these four questions, and it's it's crazy, man. I'm gonna try and find the questions. Um, my friend shared this with me, and it just blew my fucking mind. I can't find it. I got so many things. But basically, it was the question number one was like, when did you last dance?
mm, yeah,
When did you last sing?
yeah,
One of them was when did you lose your enthrallment with story?
yeah,
Any kind of story.
yeah,
Like just a great story. Like could be watching sports,
yeah,
like, oh, this team was lost three in a row and now they're going in the Super Bowl and you get excited about that. You're like,
yeah,
holy shit. Like all those and they pass this perfect pass in the playoffs and then they get this touchdown with two
yeah,
seconds to go. Like
yeah,
that's a
yeah,
story.
yeah,
That's what people fall in love with.
yeah,
Or the story of a great movie like Gladiator
yeah,
or Braveheart or Lord of the Rings for me. Like these
yeah,
stories that are these beautiful examples of a hero's journey. And all of them follow the same thing,
mhm,
where the main villain has this deep connection with the main hero.
yeah,
Sauron's ring with Frodo,
yeah,
for example. Or Voldemort, Harry Potter is a Horcrux for Voldemort. They are
yeah.
linked.
Star
Uh,
Wars, you have
Star
Star Wars
Wars,
and
the
Darth Vader and
father, the
Luke. Yep.
son.
Yeah.
Exactly. All that is, it's the yin and the yang.
Yeah.
That's what it is. It's like there's a little bit of evil in every good, and there's a little bit of good in every evil. And
Yeah.
these stories have been told for thousands and thousands of years.
Hmm.
And it's just telling the story of you.
Yeah. And you know what I love about what you said earlier with the tribes and ancient wisdom and traditional, whatever term you want to use, but
Just wisdom.
yeah, just wisdom. Yeah, wisdom. But here's the beauty of it. One, I would say is that for anybody, it's like look at it. Just explore it. And it doesn't mean that you need to join a tribe now and do this. And then but there's going to be something when you start looking at these traditions, these things that they did that will resonate with you. There's going to be something that you're like, you know what? You're right. Like, I don't remember the last time I danced. And it's like, huh, that's actually like,
Just in your living room, man, just put a favorite song and just kind of
just get
who
moving.
gives a fuck? Just
Yeah.
have fun. Like just
Yeah.
move your body a little bit.
Yeah. It's a great example. And it was funny. My wife been saying this to me is like, oh, we haven't gone out dancing in a while. So we finally, like, hey, we're gonna go. And we don't go out to clubs. I don't even like, but we did. And it was a
Yeah.
little awkward at first, but at the end of the day, we went out and we danced. And it was a huge smile on her face. I had a smile on my face. And it was just fun. And it was something different.
Yep.
So I would say look at those traditions. Look at anything like that where the premise around a culture was about the wellness and the happiness of their people. And look at what did they do and how can you do something similar now? What I don't right now, ayahuasca to me, I'm like, nah, I'm good. But the fact of, okay, what parts of my life do I not, or parts of me do I run away from, or do I feel shame? Or let's just like think about it. Maybe a good practice is just journaling. Let's write it
100%.
down. Okay, what parts of my life have I been ashamed of? Write it down for 10, 15 minutes, right? I started journaling a few months back, and I actually don't, for years, I was like, I don't journal. I do a lot of deep thought and whatever, but it's interesting just that writing it down, the stuff that comes up,
Oh, it's
a bit
amazing.
different.
It's amazing how different it is than mulling things over in your head.
Yep. Yep.
And here's the thing here's the thing I'll say about plant medicines in general. They're not for everybody.
Mhm, mhm.
I went into them because I took my same extreme mindset of like, oh, I could like journal for a year, or I could drink ayahuasca
Yeah.
and feel it all in 4 hours. That's not for everybody. It can be highly destabilizing.
Yeah.
It can be traumatic even.
Yeah.
It can
Yep.
be, I've had horror stories. I've had horror stories of people going to the wrong facilities, the wrong places, just weird experiences where it's like, hey, man, like this is not for everybody. You don't need any of those things. They are just a tool. There's so many different tools you can use. They're just a tool. They're a great tool, but not everybody uses the same tools.
Yeah.
Maybe what you're constructing needs a screwdriver. Maybe it doesn't need a hammer. What I
Mhm.
needed at the time was I needed a hammer to shatter everything.
You need a power saw is what you needed. It's something
Yeah,
just a
something, whatever,
jackhammer.
everything, like whatever it is you need. And then there's meditation, and there's exposing yourself to cold. That some people really love that. Some
Yep.
people love fasting. Some people find spiritual growth
Yeah.
running.
Yeah.
Like it doesn't matter what it is. It's about finding what works for you. And like Nathaniel said, just experiment with it. Research these things.
Yeah.
Listen to podcasts like this. Reach out to people like Nathaniel. Reach out to people like me.
Yeah.
Like just do what feels good to you and use your intuition the whole time.
Totally. And I would say there's some common threads there because unfortunately, the flip side of that is sometimes people's intuition's so, again, if you think of like a place where you've just been so dragged down by media and screen and self and ego, what feels good right now is to party with my friends and drink. And it's like,
That's not
right.
intuition. Yeah, like
Yeah.
here's the thing, most people's intuition is like a clogged like drainage system almost, like where
Yeah.
it's like so buried. Oh yes, I wanted to do this because that's what I wanted to do.
Yeah. Yeah.
Like, well, what part of you wanted to do that? Let's talk to them.
Yeah.
What,
That's a good point.
what wounded part of you? People are like, oh, that's just who I am. Okay,
Well, and here's the reality. It's like it's up to you. If you
exactly.
want to be different, if you want to experience something different, then you have to do something different. One of my favorite sayings is like, if nothing changes, well, then nothing changes.
I know, it's
So if
so
you're completely happy
cool.
doing
Okay.
whatever life you want right now and having this ego or whatever it is, then fine, so be it. But if you're getting to the point where you're starting to feel these things and you're just not, like you said, you're something like yourself, what you're making $30,000 a month and still not feeling good and having these emotions.
It was worse
There, yeah,
because
yeah,
that
that's
wasn't the answer. What
exactly.
what I thought was the answer wasn't it,
Yeah,
which was really painful. It's
yeah,
like, oh, I thought this would be different.
yeah,
I imagined this feeling of when I would get to this place to feel different. It felt honestly, Nathaniel, it felt like that for maybe a couple of weeks. And I was
mm,
like, hmm. I remember when I got my biggest paycheck of my life. Guy I worked with was like, congratulations, man, you had a great month last month. And I saw the number, it was like 37 grand. I was like, cool. And I left the office with my paycheck and I was like, why don't I feel how I thought I would feel?
yeah,
like, what the fuck is going on? Like, it was
Yeah.
strange. It was like this, oh shit.
Yeah.
Like, oh no. Oh, I thought this would be different.
Yeah.
I, yeah, it's
But you know
wild.
what? I've heard a really good saying. It was when you have the perspective shift there I've heard and use is it's not the goal, it's who you become to accomplish that goal. So
Exactly.
yeah, the money, you're like, okay, cool. But I would say that what's better is the fact that you became a certain type of person and you're able to access that side of yourself that could maybe push yourself when it was needed and to be able to grow and expand and learn to connect with people to accomplish that goal and learn the type of work it took to do that,
Yeah,
which has more value, I would say, than the actual end result.
100%.
Right?
I
Because now you
think,
can apply that to anything.
yeah, my, it's funny, yes and no. And the reason why it's yes is because, yes, I have all these skills. I have amazing communication skills. I have all these skills.
Mhm.
No, because what it took for me to get there was directly hurting who I am. Because
Mm,
it was like this manic insecurity where I would just load
yeah,
myself up on caffeine,
right.
like that, just talk to myself like a piece of shit constantly if I wasn't constantly progressing.
Mm,
Like less is more sometimes. Like
yeah,
I'd rather make a third of that and feel inner peace and get up every day than my nervous system constantly being in overdrive,
yeah.
constantly. Dude, I would sometimes sweat from my armpit to my hip, like every day. I'd
Oh, yeah.
manically sweat. Like I would try different deodorants. I would wear
Oh,
sweat-proof shirts. Like it was
oh,
wild. And it
yeah,
was
that's
just my
crazy.
nervous system screaming at me for
Hmm.
years. I sweated like that from 15 to 28, dude. It was wild. And then there was all this insecurity about it.
Yeah,
Like I would never buy any colored shirts, only wore black. I
yeah.
would never, I would constantly hiding it, so much shame. Like, what if somebody sees me sweat? What if
Mm,
and it was like this. It was horrible. But
yeah,
that's the reality I lived in. I got so used to it that I was like, oh, this is just how my life is.
yeah,
And then when I was able to release all the stuff, I was a dam. I was a dam of emotions. And I
yeah,
just didn't know I was.
yeah,
And that dam of emotions was leaking out of my armpits every day.
yeah,
The anxiety, the fear, it just was like, it's just, oh, you won't feel it. You're just ramping yourself up, medicating yourself with caffeine, just
yeah,
going more, 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 more. It's like I live this life that like if I run as fast as possible, that light at the end of the tunnel, it's like I was running so fast, but the light at the end of the tunnel just kept on getting further and further away.
yeah,
But
yeah.
maybe if I run faster, maybe if I make more money, maybe if I do more, maybe that feeling that I'm looking for, which
Mm,
was just loving myself,
mm,
accepting myself for who I am, maybe it'll get closer.
yeah,
And it got further and further away the more I did.
yeah.
Something that I had a hard time with too is I made all that money, but I realized in oh yeah, 5 months ago, 4 or 5 months ago, that I was addicted to feeling unsafe.
Oh, yeah.
Addicted to it. I grew
Wow.
up feeling very unsafe my entire life, so it's my homeostasis. So most people have an emotional home.
Yep.
So if your emotional home is feeling unsafe, it
Where do you
doesn't
go
matter how
to?
much money you make, you will
Yep.
spend it.
Yep.
So that's why I'm in this season right now where I'm currently, I don't have a lot of finances. I mean,
Hmm.
having a good month this month, I'll make pretty decent money this month, but I'm like rebuilding.
Mm,
I'm rebuilding my life differently after having a manic 2 year period of making really good money, but spending it,
yeah.
spending $25,000 on a trip to Italy with
Yeah.
Lexi.
Yeah.
Amazing trip. Um, but like doing like making this money and then spending it and then feeling unsafe again because that's my homeostasis. And
Hmm.
then having drive from fear, then go make a bunch of money, spend it all, feel unsafe again, and repeating that pattern.
Yeah.
And I've had conversations with my father and my mum, and that was actually an example of generational trauma for me, which is very interesting, is that
Mhm.
my dad has felt unsafe his entire life.
Oh, wow. Okay.
So if my father has felt unsafe his entire life,
Yeah.
like literally since he was very heavy abuse, really
Oh,
bad physical abuse as a child,
yeah.
to the point where I've noticed in his life, he keeps having these moments where he's unsafe. He's
Yeah.
70 years old, never felt safe. I had this
Oh,
conversation with him in December when I was, so in February when I was in Australia, which about a month ago, had some beautiful conversations with my father. I was like, have you ever felt safe? He's like, no. And
wow.
I was like, well, if you're the example of what it means to be a man, I grew up with you. How the fuck are you supposed to teach me how to feel safe if you don't? He's like, I couldn't.
Yeah.
I was like, well, fuck me, hey.
Yeah.
It's like, holy shit. It's like, that's why my entire life I've been looking for it. I've been looking for masculine figures outside of myself
Yeah.
to make me feel safe
Yeah.
because it was not my dad's fault. And I have these conversations, and a lot of people can't have these conversations with their parents because their parents will get highly triggered because they haven't done their work on themselves, and it can be very
Yeah.
painful. But it is your responsibility as an adult to try to have these conversations with your parents. That's what I've been doing. So I've had beautiful conversations with both my mom and my dad, and I've seen that it couldn't have happened any other way. It was beautiful.
Hmm.
But it doesn't mean it wasn't painful. It doesn't mean I don't have anger towards them in certain aspects that I've been able to release.
Yeah.
But that one there, I was like, why do I make all this money and yet I feel broke all the time? Like, why do I make all this money but I feel unsafe? Like, what the
Yeah.
fuck is going on? Why do I find putting money in savings repulsive?
Right. But you know what's interesting about that was that you ask the questions to yourself.
Yeah.
And I think that's the key there. Whatever somebody's going through is that you constantly were asking these questions.
Life makes you ask the questions eventually.
Yeah. And
It
it comes
makes
by the kicked in the junk moments or
you're
moments where you
like,
just get hit.
why have I had 15 girlfriends in 10 years? What the
Yeah.
fuck is going on? It
Well,
can't all be them.
and that's the interesting part is it's a common denominator, right? What's the common denominator here?
You.
And most people don't want to hear it, but it's you.
Yep.
It's a huge hit on the ego. It's putting yourself in check, but it's true. What's the common denominator, right?
It's a very
And
jagged pill to swallow.
yeah, yeah,
Ooh,
exactly.
look.
Yeah, absolutely. But I said I love that you were able to do that and reach out to your dad and have that conversation and really connect with him on that and see that like it's not blame, but it's like, okay, this is a deep thing.
Yeah, this is how it is. So
This is how,
what
yeah,
I have to do now is I have to be uncomfortable with safety,
yeah,
which is strange. Like
yeah,
it's going to feel uncomfortable with me as I stack money away and in savings and investments because I have a skill set where I can make a lot of money. I do.
yeah,
And I can make a lot of money very quickly, which is also a curse because that's what got me stuck in that addictive cycle of feeling unsafe in the first place.
yeah,
But now I do it differently. And now what I do is I have to learn to sit with the discomfort of what it feels like to have safety and not want to go make myself feel unsafe again,
yeah,
which is something I've actually never done in my entire life. And I'm
totally.
31 this year,
Which is
32 this
wild.
year.
That's wild, but it's Dr. Joe Dispenza talks about is it's going from the familiar to unfamiliar because
Yeah,
and this is a tough one that again a lot of people don't like to hear. It's like you're familiar with the pain, you're familiar with the unsafety,
yeah.
familiar with a bad relationship, you're familiar with the negativity you live with, the negativity you talk to yourself, the negativity your partner talks to you, whatever it is, you pick it. What if it's bad and it's constantly happening, it's you're familiar with it.
That's your home.
It's your
That's your
home,
home.
and your nervous system has put a highway to those emotions.
It wants to go back home
It
all the
wants
time.
it all the time. So you have to take that conscious effort and shift out of it, which takes
Yeah.
constant awareness, practice, and as you said, asking, and we talked about asking those questions and having enough presence to sit with yourself and to be willing to turn and go, okay, what else can be? How else could I feel? What else do I want to feel in my life? And how do I practice that? Because as you mentioned in the beginning, it comes back to practicing it now
Yeah.
and accepting who I want to be and can be.
That's why Joe Dispenza's work is so good.
Yeah.
Some people are like, oh, I got to look at my emotions, look at my past. be careful with that.
Yeah.
Yes, you do, but simultaneously you also have to be looking forward and to feel what you want to feel.
Yes.
Where I went wrong is I looked at all the reasons I was fucked up for two and
Mm,
a half years.
yeah.
So what does that equal?
Yeah.
It equals the same thing. It's a
Yeah.
snake eating its own tail.
Yeah.
So that ayahuasca experience broke that for me.
Yeah.
It's basically like, what the fuck are you doing?
Yeah.
Like, you don't need to do this.
Yeah.
Here's the final crescendo of you feeling like you're broken.
Yeah.
But everything was given back to me. And it's like, hey, you're not broken.
Yeah.
Like Terence McKenna, he's one of the forefathers like modern psychedelics, right? He was like heavy into looking at to use it for healing and things like that. He was like, when you get the message on the phone, hang up the phone. That's what he talks about psychedelic use.
Mm,
Like, why do you keep picking up the phone?
yeah.
I kept on picking up the phone.
Yeah.
Oh, well, maybe, and that was the very problem that
Yeah.
you're not broken. There's
Yeah.
nothing wrong with you. And if you are listening to this and you hear that and you have a but,
Mhm. That's what you need to address.
there it is. Oh, but you don't know. You don't know all the fucked up stuff I'd had. Okay, so have I.
Yeah.
Should see. I could tell you all the fucked up stuff I've done. It's wild.
And this is the thing is like it's everybody.
Yep.
And everybody's is different. Sometimes it's super deep in one topic, sometimes they've just done it all. But you have to, I think, to tie back what you were talking about before, it's you have to know what you want.
Yeah.
And that's the critical part because, and this is where I love the coaching side because therapy to talk about is all past, coaching's what you is now and future. And I
Yeah.
think that's where a lot of people,
Coaching is how and what. Okay, cool. Why? Like, let's ask why. If you constantly ask why, you'll feel like shit. You
yeah,
just will.
yeah,
But like coaching is how and the what. Okay, cool. Horrible stuff. You were raped. Horrible. Unbelievably horrible. You
yeah,
went through horrible physical abuse. I would never want that on anybody. I
yeah,
cannot even imagine how pain. I don't know how you feel. I don't.
yeah,
But what and how are you going to go about living the rest of your life?
exactly.
You don't want to keep perpetuating that pain. Like
Yeah,
you don't want that, and you know you don't want. That's why you're here. That's why you're
yeah,
listening to something like this.
yeah,
So how are you going to move forward, and what do you want to feel?
yeah,
And then make those new emotions, like you said, Joe Dispenza, make those new emotions your home. But
yeah,
eventually, you at the start, they're going to feel really fucking uncomfortable because they're not familiar.
yeah, yeah,
Just like if you move to a new city, just like I moved across the world from Australia to Canada, I was like, this doesn't feel like home.
mhm,
But it now does feel like home because I've spent enough time here. Just like if you spent enough time with gratitude and acceptance
yeah,
and these things and sadness and shame, and you have to spend time with them because they're actually all trying to love you. If you
yeah,
feel these emotions all the time, they'll whisper to you, then they'll talk to you, then they'll scream at you, and then they'll make you sick until you listen to them.
yeah,
You have to until you stop avoiding it.
yeah,
You can't
absolutely.
avoid yourself because it's like when people say they want to go traveling because they want to go find themselves. It's like, well, who's the one that booked the flight?
Yeah,
It was you, dude. Like it was
yeah,
you.
yeah,
Like who are
exactly.
who are you gonna go find? Like, what do you
Yeah,
mean go find yourself? Like you're there the whole time.
it's all inwards.
Exactly.
It's all inwards. You can do it on your bed. You can do it out in the bush. You can do it across the world, or you can just sit at home, put your screen away, put your phone away, and just be. And
Yep.
you know what? That was absolutely wonderful. We are running out of time here, and that was like, thank you for
Thank
that.
you.
Honestly, that was amazing. How can people reach out to you? Because you're doing some amazing work, and I know there's gonna be people that resonate with you and what you're doing. How can they find you?
Best place to reach me is Arhen Lynch Potter on Instagram. It's AHRENLYNCHPOTTER. I'm in the process of building a website right now. It's probably going to be done in the next month. It's a lot to do, like a proper website. It's a lot.
Yeah,
If you want to reach out in regards to coaching and doing coaching with me, just talk to me on Instagram. It's the best place to reach me. And then in the next month or so, I'll have a website you can access and that will be published on there. That's the best place to reach me is through Instagram.
perfect.
Yeah.
And you know what? That was, like I said, I really appreciate you taking time of your day to do this. I know I learned a lot from this one. I'm sure other people will. And thank you for what you're doing. I will definitely, we'll have to stay in touch and we'll have to do another episode because this was so good. I know there's more we could dive down for sure.
Oh, dude, we could go so many different directions. Like this.
Just be
So
a
many.
4-hour episode. No.
Yeah.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much.
Thanks, Nathaniel.
So thank you so much for listening to this episode. I really appreciate you taking the time out of your busy day to do that. If you haven't yet, please subscribe. Please share, because that's what helps this podcast grow and be able to reach more people. And why wouldn't you want to share something like that with somebody if you really enjoyed it? If you haven't yet, I'd also encourage you to go to lifepurposely.ca. My wonderful wife, Emily, sends out weekly content to help you improve your life and to think differently and to make wonderful changes that can impact your life forever. So thank you again for listening. I'll catch you on the next episode.